If you're looking for an electric scooter, well, this video may be for you because I am going to be targeting 5 of my most favorite electric scooters that I've had on the channel, particularly last year. And of course, these are going to be cheaper. They're not going to be 2,000 or 3,000. They're going to be below the 1,000 mark. So this video may be suitable for you. Now I'm going to be counting these down from 5 to 1. Now I did have last year the Joyer S10S electric scooter, and I was a bit skeptical waiting on that scooter to arrive, but boy did it blow me away. So the Joyer S10S had 1000 watt motors in the front and in the rear, and of course dual motor scooters are fantastic for hill climbing ability. So definitely if you live in a hilly area, this is a scooter to consider. But I'm going to tell you one of the cool things about the scooter now in a second. It did have a maximum speed of up to 65 kilometers per hour and a range of between 70 and 85 kilometers. Of course, as I always say, you need to keep in mind that temperature can affect the range of an electric scooter, start, stop, hill climbing, wind, your tire pressure as well. I always have the tire pressure on the majority of electric scooters of around 45 psi, which also helps to avoid flats. So you also need to take into consider all of those things when it comes to range. But that Joyer S10S had actually a 60 volt battery that was 18 amp hours. So the power output of that Joyer S10S was absolutely nuts, and it was a very lightweight electric scooter, which weighed only 27 kilograms. It also supported a weight of up to 120 kilos. Plus it also had front suspension and rear suspension, which was okay suspension. It wasn't the most best suspension I've ever had on an electric scooter, but it was definitely better than nothing. The folding mechanism on that scooter was actually quite good, to be honest, and because of the lightweight, it's easier to take on and off public transport, in and out of the back of your car. It actually did have full hydraulic brakes in the front and in the rear, plus it also had electronic braking as well. So from a safety aspect, it was great. Plus it also had, of course, front lights, rear lights, and so on. And the tires as well on that electric scooter were my favorite 10-inch pneumatic hybrid tires. So overall, that would be one of my favorite electric scooters. So let's go on to the fourth one. Now, I've pretty much reviewed so many Kukirin electric scooters, basically 90% of the ones that are now on the market. And the G2 Master that I had last year was a very nice electric scooter. So let's break it down and tell you some of its features. Again, this was a dual 1000 watt electric scooter. Max speed of up to 70 kilometers an hour. Again, depends on the weather, your weight, everything else. I got around 60 kilometers an hour, which to be honest is more than fast enough on electric scooters. Range was up to 70 kilometers. Again, depends on the factors. The capacity on that scooter, the G2 Master, is slightly lower than the battery capacity on the Joyer S10S, which was a 52 volt 20.8 amp hour battery on the G2 Master, but it did have fantastic power. The deck I did like on that scooter because it was kind of nice and low to the ground, so a nice low center of gravity, but it did also have clearance for coming off curbs, do things like that. Climbing ability, again, another dual motor electric scooter of up to 35 degrees, which in reality, most people don't live in hilly areas that are kind of that steep. Most are averaging around 10 to 15 degrees. Because it's dual motor, absolutely nothing to worry about. You can also switch between the single or the dual, and you can also customize the P settings on that scooter to have more acceleration, less acceleration. Again, everything is explained in the video. One of the letdowns on the G2 Master was actually the brakes. It did have standard mechanical disc braking, which it's okay on some electric scooters, but when you get to the higher end speeds of the G2 Master, for example, braking, you definitely need to be cautious. You could upgrade it, if you wanted to full hydraulic braking, but compared to the Joyer S10S that had full hydraulic braking, full hydraulic braking is definitely the way to go. But again, you could do the upgrade if you wanted, but overall, I was satisfied. Now, the net weight of the G2 Master actually came in at 35 kilograms, so heavier than the Joyer S10S. But I found the G2 Master to be slightly more comfortable than the Joyer S10S because the deck was nice, rubber material. It was a little bit more spacious to maneuver your feet around so you don't kind of feel restricted. And also it was height adjustable. The Joyer S10S is also height adjustable as well. But overall, I was quite happy with the G2 Master. definitely check out that video. Now, coming in at number 3 was one of my favorite electric scooters that I actually had a chance to review last year, and that was the Kingsong M14 that is packed full of features. Now, this is a single motor scooter that had a 500 watt rear motor with a peak output of 900 watts, and a single motor scooter generally they have like 500 watt motors, you know, they're okay, but because it's made from Kingsong that are quite reputable, particularly in their EUC market, I was blown away. The peak output on that scooter was absolutely nuts, and yeah, it's definitely one of those scooters that you need to consider. It had a max speed of up to 40 kilometers an hour, which I found more than enough for a scooter like this. The handlebars were nice and wide. The display was nice and modern. It wasn't like a typical generic display on that scooter, which I loved. It had LED wraparound lights, completely customizable. 48 volt system, 10-inch pneumatic tyres, dual suspension in the front and in the rear, which was really good. Very nice discreet rear suspension on that electric scooter. I had a front drum brake, it had a rear disc brake, plus it also had the electronic braking as well. Now, one of the best selling points of the Kingsong M14 was the app. The app, you can customize so many things on that electric scooter, such as the electronic braking. You can also monitor the cells. It had a built-in diagnostic system. I mean, absolutely everything you can want. And I guess some apps on some electric scooters don't really serve a purpose because they don't have a lot of information, like Smart BMS. But on the Kingsong M14, you could literally monitor the whole electric scooter. Plus it also had like a lock and theft feature. And yeah, basically everything is explained in the review, but you definitely need to go and check that out if you're considering getting a first electric scooter. The 3 scooters that I mentioned, just for reference before I get to my second scooter, basically have ratings of IP54. Now, you need to keep in mind, if you live in a rainy country where it's basically 50, I live in a rainy country, so that's why I've kind of put these scooters in the back end of this video. They are IP54, so it's okay in light rain. You need to be always cautious when riding an electric scooter in the rain. You might not see initial damage, but over time you may have damage like rust in the battery compartments. Water could get in there, damage to controllers, damage the battery. You know, there's so many things to consider. So if you happen to get caught in rain, as soon as you get home, dry off the scooter as much as possible. And wherever you do, if you need to clean your electric scooter, I've made a video on this already, just use a damp microfiber cloth, clean it, and just make sure everything is greased properly. So coming in at number 2 was a scooter that I got not too long ago, which is actually the Locomotion Pro. That's from an Irish company. They also ship all around Europe, and well, let's talk about this because it is quite an interesting scooter that has good spec. Now, if you are in the EU, of course, some countries are restricting motor capacity and speed. Now, the motor on that scooter is a 400 watt motor. You can limit the speed on that scooter to 20 kilometers an hour within the app. The app is pretty basic, but it does do the job. So again, you have that lower capacity motor that might suit a lot of regulations. If you have to limit the speed to 20 kilometers an hour, you can do it within the app. If you have to limit it to 25 kilometers an hour, you can do it within the app. But if you live in an area where there is generally no restrictions, you can max out the speed on that electric scooter to 35 kilometers an hour. So it's very nice. The folding mechanism of the Locomotion Pro was one of my favorite. It's robust. It's a fantastic design. It also has a front drum brake and it has rear electronic braking, which again can be customizable within the app. So you have that flexibility there. Range up to 60 kilometers. Again, that would probably be on eco mode with a lighter rider. Realistically, if you're going the higher end top speed, you may get 30 to 35 kilometer distance. Again, there's so many factors to consider. 36 volt 13 amp hour battery, but it also does come actually with a 3 amp hour fast charger, which can happen around between 4 to 5 hours from a completely flat battery. So again, the fast charging capability of the Locomotion Pro is really good. It has 10-inch pneumatic tyres, front and in the rear. It also has indicators built in, which again, some regulations they require built-in indicators. So again, it falls into that kind of category of being legal on roads. It also comes with 2 NFC cards as well for security. So nobody can use an electric scooter unless they have those NFC cards there to turn on the scooter or to turn off the scooter. Also, if you are worried, on the other hand, if you are worried about losing those NFC cards, you can simply disable that within the app so you can turn it on and off without those keys. I would advise people that have to lock up electric scooters, I see it in my area all the time, they tend to use cheap locks and sometimes only one lock. I would use maybe 2 locks, such as the kryptonite lock. Plus, if you have an iPhone, you can also pop a hidden AirTag on your electric scooter. I have one, and it's basically a bell. You pop the tag in, and basically it's a tracker of your electric scooter. And yeah, it's one of those small investments that you need to make. It'll only cost you €20, so you can track your scooter if unfortunately it happens to get stolen. Plus, you can remove the speakers on AirTags. So it means if somebody, let's say they steal your scooter, and then next of all they're trying to find your AirTag by playing the sound, if they get notified on their phone, for example, they're not going to find it because you've removed the speaker. So it's probably one of the cheapest anti-theft things you can have there. It does also have front suspension. The deck is huge on the Locomotion Pro, giving you that comfortability factor if you are going long journeys. It's also IPX7 rated, which means you can be ridden in heavy rain, so it can give you that peace of mind. Of course, always be cautious, but that's probably one of the better selling points of the Locomotion Pro. Now let's get on to my number one. My favorite electric scooter, which is my own personal electric scooter, is the InMotion Climber. This scooter blew me away, and I would definitely suggest checking out that review. It basically has 450 watt motor in the front and the rear, with a peak output of 750 watt each, which means you get 1500 watts of power from this dual motor electric scooter. Maximum speed is 25 kilometers an hour on the InMotion Climber. However, don't worry, this can be unlocked quite easily. And I do have mine unlocked, which gives me around 35 to 38 kilometers an hour on my InMotion Climber. You can have a range of up to 55 kilometers on the InMotion Climber, but just have a 36 volt battery, which is 15 amp hours also. Charging time is a bit of a letdown on the InMotion Climber. It can take up to 9 hours to charge that electric scooter, but it is suited for fast charging if you know what you're doing. But you do get a 2 amp hour charger with it, so for that reason it can take up to 9 hours to charge it. But as I always advise, never let the battery on your electric scooter go so low. Now, InMotion are a very high reputable scooter company. They also do EUCs, and this is where they come into play, and that's why it's slightly one of the more expensive electric scooters out there. It has a smart BMS built in, similar to the Kingsong M14. The app is really good on InMotion, and again, you can monitor each cell, you can diagnose the scooter, see if there's anything wrong with it or anything like that at all. You have built-in support through InMotion through the actual app itself. So all the safety features are there, and you can customize a few things if you want through it as well, like cruise control and all those other things there. So the app is definitely one of the better selling features of the InMotion Climber. And keep this in mind, this is a dual motor scooter that can climb extremely steep hills. And when I'm talking about steep hills, I'm talking about gradients of 36%, which is about 20 degrees. Now, this scooter, I've tested it on a few hills, and oh my god, this can climb it no problem at all. It's the best. It's my favorite electric scooter. You really have to check out that review. It can also support a rider weight of up to 140 kilograms. And check this out, it comes with 10-inch pneumatic tires that are split rim. Plus they also come with a thicker inner tube, so punctures on this scooter is less likely to happen because they are on the higher quality end. So plus as well, it's a split rim, so if you get a puncture, split rims are so much easier to take off. You just take off the split rim, pop on your new tube or your new tire, put it back together and put it back on the electric scooter. And that's one of those, again, top features of the InMotion Climber, and that's why I love it. The deck on the InMotion Climber is my favorite of all the electric scooters I've ever had since I started reviewing them. It's huge. You have so much space. It's easy to clean. What more could you want? And the folding mechanism on the InMotion Climber is quite durable. It's a very simple looking scooter to use. But again, here's another cool thing about the InMotion Climber. Is only just over 20 kilograms in weight. Think about that for a second. dual motor scooter, split rims, 36-volt battery, very easy to use, good strong frame. I mean, what more could you want? It has electronic braking, plus it also has a mechanical disc braking in the rear. It has a very powerful front light and rear light, which again is fantastic. Now, just to keep in note, the Emotion Climber that I have currently is the older version. They actually did bring out a newer version that actually has indicators now built in to the actual handlebar area, which, you know, I was thinking, oh, would I get another Emotion Climber for the sake of those indicators? Maybe I would. But those are the current versions that you have now with those upgraded indicators. Now, it doesn't have suspension, the Emotion Climber, but without everything else considered, I don't care. I mean, I don't live in an area where the roads are bad. They're generally quite okay. And the Emotion Climber is on top of the list, and it's my personal scooter. And the body on the Emotion Climber is IPX6 rated, which again is great for heavy rain. And the actual battery compartment controller area is IPX7 rated. Again, which means it could be technically submerged. Not that you would do that in reality, but it gives you peace of mind. Heavy rain, you need to get to work, and you don't have to worry about the electric scooter. And because it's from Emotion, I mean, generally I feel safe with that electric scooter. It's definitely on top of the list. So if you have enjoyed this video, all reviews, by the way, are linked below. I will make a video about bigger electric scooters that I have reviewed on the channel that are more expensive, heavier on weight, but this is kind of one of those videos that will suit a majority of people looking to upgrade their scooter or looking to just get their first electric scooter. So again, give this video a like. Any questions, comments, please leave them below, and I'll talk to you in the next video.